Welcome to another episode of the Time Management Revolution podcast. I'm Helene Segura, and I'm a time management fixer. Today, we have with us Beverly Flores, and Beverly is a keynote speaker, award-winning career and leadership strategist, and founder of Thyme Out Consulting. And that's time spelled Thyme, as in the herb. And we're going to find out why in a little while. A former Fortune 100 leader, she spent 24 years leading transformational initiatives at John Deere. Today, she helps high-achieving professionals and leaders move from burnout into energized, bold impact through her signature EEI system. Known for her authenticity and personal EEI, Beverly empowers others to lead and live with courage, align with purpose, and design lives they love. Beverly, welcome.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. And let's start off with a very simple definition so we understand what it is you do. What exactly is a leadership strategist?
I know, don't you love buzzwords, especially in corporate and business life? They are amazing. But what I do at the heart of this is I help you own your career and love your life. So many times we look at leadership as a title position or responsibility, but leadership is about looking at yourself and looking at your whole life. And so, I look at it from a spiritual foundation, a personal, a professional, and mental and physical well-being. And then I help give people the tools to evaluate where are you spending your time, which is also your energy. And then how do you live into your energy and connect that with your enthusiasm and bring intensity to what mattered? So it's that outside perspective. I'm a huge sports fan. So I tell people like professional athletes, like the people we admire in sports, and even if you think about it from like music, like they have coaches. Why as individuals, why as leaders are we not also getting a coach? And that's what I lean into.
Oh, nice. And you sound very passionate about what you do. So I'm really looking forward to what you're going to be sharing with us today. And as I mentioned in the introduction, you help clients move from burnout to energized. So how exactly does that connect to this podcast about time management?
Yeah. So, I've been there. I had a 24-year career at a Fortune 100. I started as an intern and worked up to the leadership level that I was. And I'm also a full-time single parent of 3 boys during that period as well. And every day, I would do what was giving my family security. I loved my teams. I didn't necessarily love the purpose as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept going because you're high achieving and I'm driven by success in the sense of like I've been an athlete, like that resonates with me. But then you also get to a point where you're just hanging on. And when you're at that point, you lose your efficiency. You lose some of that productivity, and then you're trying to find it even more. So I know what it's like when you get to that stress level of burnout and you don't even see it. And on the other
Yes.
side of that, the ability to take a step back. So I tell people I was very fortunate. I went through a corporate restructuring. I got a severance package. It was the best thing that could have happened because I didn't know how to step out of that burnout. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
how to step away from the comfort and the security. When I was given that opportunity with the, hey, thank you for your service, but here you go. I was so thankful to the universe, to God, whatever your spiritual belief is. I was like, I get to choose now, right? And courage is a really critical piece that, imagine courage isn't just a way of thinking. It's not just a way of acting. It's both, right? Sometimes we have to be very courageous in what we talk ourselves into for action. So I help provide that framework through the energy, enthusiasm, and impact. And I take a
Mm-hmm.
holistic approach. So I'm not going to sit down with a leader and just talk business strategy. We're going to talk about life and leadership as a whole and how you show up in the boardroom as much as how you show up in the car driving home and with your family and your friends. Like it's all you. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to be courageous to have that lasting impact.
Oh, yes, definitely. And you've already mentioned energy. Why do you believe that energy management and not specifically time management, is the real key to preventing burnout and unlocking somebody's full potential?
So I can tell you almost down to a minute, like my morning routine. I was that structured from a time management perspective and wholly efficient. Like I loved icebreakers, where they'd be like, tell us your morning routine. And it's supposed to be all like soft and flowy. And I'd be like, at 6:35, if I'm not making coffee by 6:36, and that takes 4 minutes, which I can feed the dog in those 4 minutes, and then I can do my makeup, right? That's time management. And we do need that. It provides an accountability overall. And that can look very different for different people and how much you need to align with that. But even with that structure, I was tired. I wasn't aligned to my passion and my purpose. And sometimes, like when you're giving energy, one of the exercises I do with individuals is just for a day, regular day, is go in and I want you to watch your activities from when you get up to when you go to bed. What are the things that give you energy, right? It might be doing a podcast, right? I love talking with people, so it totally gives me energy. Talking about, figuring out a paid ad, like it drains my energy. Like I don't love creating an ad itself. I would much rather talk with people. I know that. But if you watch your day, identify what gives you energy, what develops it, and what drains it. Now, here's the thing. You're still going to have to do some of the things that drain your energy. But realistically, 80% of your day should be on things that give and create energy, and 20% on ones that don't. Because, as I tell people in the corporate, like, you're going to have to do the expense report. I know very few people that it gives them energy to do the expense report, right? And so we procrastinate on it. Meanwhile, then the list of receipts we need to put in gets longer, right? It's now taking more time. Versus if you had efficiently done that and used that little bit of energy and then go do something that you're excited about that gives you energy, you don't create additional stress when you're managing your energy versus solely looking at it from a time management perspective. So they go hand in hand, right? If you're managing your energy, I guarantee you're going to better manage your time.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Now, your company, and we hinted at this in your introduction, your company is called Thyme Out Consulting, with time spelled like the herb, Thyme. Can you share with us the time out principle and how a strategic pause can actually accelerate results?
So I'm a big sports fan, so you kind of have to know that underneath that. And as I decided to start my business, of course, you need a name. And that isn't always straightforward. And I had this great name. It was simple, straightforward. Someone else already had that name. So that wasn't going to work. And so looking at it, I started asking my friends, I'm asking my family, like, hey, when you think of me, like I always have all these little sayings, and I'm very much, I love England, like if I could be anywhere. So it's like onwards and upwards, and could I call it London, all these things. And my oldest son gave me a name of like a flower. And I was like, I don't even think I could say that consistently. Like, what does that mean? And he told me, and I was like, oh, wait. So one of the exercises I do with people is identifying your two core values. I think this is really critical to leadership development because we get so influenced by our community, our companies. Know yourself. So your two core values. So I was like, right. So one of mine is courage. And so I was like, plants that mean courage, and building a business, going through change and stepping into your authentic self, that takes courage and it takes strength. So I was like, okay, courage to change, strength to lead. So that's my motto. Plants that mean courage and strength. And time came up. So time has been used throughout history. It's given to soldiers going into battle. It was a tangible example of courage and strength for what they were going to go into. And I was like, oh, I love that. Okay, so now we have time consulting. And I was like, that's okay, right? And then happened to mention to my twins, and they're like, well, what about time out? And I was like, ooh, that's a good one. Now, and so when you're in sports, when you're trying to win, you take a time out. You want to put the best strategy in place. And so that's where I connected to the leadership, and the strategy is it does take courage and strength. And you also have to take that strategic pause. Now, a strategic pause doesn't necessarily mean you're taking time off.
Mm.
What it means is you're creating time for yourself, right? You cannot possibly take care of others as a leader if you don't take care of yourself.
Mhm.
And so that's how it all connects together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Also, in your introduction, EEI was mentioned. Can you give us a little overview about what that is?
Yeah.
Because that sounds magical and it's the solution to a lot of problems.
So, as I developed in my leadership career, and as I was working, I was very fortunate to have mentors and coaches. And so one asked me one day, what do you think? Show me one person that demonstrates these three traits that hasn't been successful. And he's like, what do you think those are? And so I named a couple of things. And I've always been energetic. I've always been very colorful. And so I was like, energy. And he's like, agreed. And so we talked on it, and the more, and then we built it in the sense of, so energy being like, this is who inherently that you are. And so many times, especially in a corporate career, you get asked to be less. You
Mhm.
feel like you have to be less to fit in. And so your energy just starts to come naturally down, right? So you have that energy piece. That enthusiasm is how you then bring the energy to life, right? I can be enthusiastic about something that I'm passionate about. If I'm not passionate about the project, I have to make myself be enthusiastic. So it's about
Mhm.
aligning with, again, those core values, those core principles that are going to bring you forward. And then intensity is really then connecting that energy to that enthusiasm to then how you deliver it, right? Sometimes I think we think about intensity as like, oh, she's really intense. And we make it a negative.
Mm.
I want somebody that is intense on success, right?
Mhm.
If they are also enthusiastic about it. If you're intense just because you're going to force something to get done, that tells me you aren't likely enthusiastic about it and it doesn't
Mhm.
create energy for you. So you are forcing yourself to do it.
Mm.
So I led that way around energy, enthusiasm, and intensity. I parent that way. My three boys and I, they joke that if we're ever going to get a family tattoo, it's going to be EEI. And so I show up in my life as I coach.
Woo, the family that gets inked together stays together. All right, all of
Exactly.
you will have EEI somewhere on your body.
Yep, yep,
Nice.
yep.
Well, speaking of family, you often say that your most powerful leadership lessons didn't come from a boardroom. So, can you share a story from your personal life that has shaped your people first approach to leadership?
So, one of the things, obviously, as a single parent, I still traveled a lot. And so, one of the things that I noticed is, how you make people feel valued. As a leader, one of the best things you can do is understand what motivates and empowers someone. How do you recognize that they matter? And what I love, so any trip that I would go on, for every day that I was going to be gone, I'd make them like a little post-it note. I'm like queen of post-it notes. And if it was a longer trip, there might be a longer letter, but I would write each of the boys a note for the days
Mm.
that I was gone. And it was, sometimes it just might be, I love you, right? Other times it might be like, you are so brave and I love what you're doing. Keep doing it, and it connected to each of the individuals. So it wasn't just me saying a message like, good job. And what I love now, because my oldest is 22, my twins are 15, and I was helping my oldest move. And as we were going through his drawers, like he had those notes, right? Those words affirm to him the value that he brought to our family
Mm.
and for him himself.
Mhm.
It's no different in the workplace. So what I would do when I had my teams is I always had a box of thank you notes. And you don't just say thank you to say thank you. You say thank you to acknowledge a skill and outcome that is unique to that individual. So instead of saying, "Hey, great job," I want to say, "Sarah, great job today." No, Sarah, thank you for using your communication skills to connect the group together. That allowed us to gain a week on the project. You made a difference,
Mm,
right? Now, for some people, they don't want to be publicly acknowledged. That makes them feel uncomfortable. So a thank you note then allows them to determine how they want to receive that information. And some would put it up on their cubicles, right? Some would just put it in the drawer and you'd never hear anything about it. And then I'd go weeks and they'd come in and say, just thank you for the note. That meant a lot.
mm,
So we have to create this connection and understanding how people receive compliments and acknowledgement and recognition. You have to tailor it to them. It has to be meaningful to matter.
mhm.
And that's the fun part, right? Is finding those moments when someone just goes, "Wow, okay, they saw me." Right? To me, that's a big piece of it. And again, that comes back to the energy and enthusiasm and intensity. Like it
Mhm,
mattered to me how I treated my team. It
mhm.
mattered to me that they felt like they could come to work and be 100% of themselves. I would joke and say, if you left part of yourself in the parking lot to come in, I want to know why.
Huh.
Because if you only brought 60% of yourself in to work, 40% is getting hungry out in the car, right? But I'm not getting 40% then. So
Mm,
help me help you and create an environment where you can bring 100%. And if you need to leave early, tell me you need to leave early. Like you don't need to feel stressed because you
mhm.
need to leave early. And that communication is such a critical part of energy and enthusiasm and intensity.
Hmm. Well, let's say somebody's listening to this or watching this and they think they have that energy, enthusiasm, intensity, but they're not sure. How do you measure that? How do you know if you're at the low end, you need to work on it, or you've reached that?
Yeah. So one of the things I encourage in living a full life is the spiritual side is about connecting with your foundation. It's how you feed your soul, right? Know what that is. So that can be going out in nature. It can be travel. It can be religious in nature. It could be reading, but sit down with yourself and ask, like, how am I doing? Like, if I assess my energy, like, am I on a 10 right now? Or am I on a 1? And what's that all about? Right? Give yourself permission to ask, hey, how are you doing? Right? And so then once you start to open that up and you create this path then for courageous answers and listen to yourself. Be willing to tell yourself the truth you already
Mhm,
know. So many times we tell ourselves, don't like be quiet, right? We're going to keep at it. Well, all the times
mhm,
you're keeping at it, you're draining your energy and you're
mhm,
lessening the true impact that you can have. And that's what connects that to that courageous impact, right? When you're in that
mhm,
burnout scenario, you are not leaning into the true impact that you can have.
mhm,
So on the other side of that, I was speaking with someone earlier today, and they said, you know what, I am in a very fortunate position. I love what I do. And she did. Like it shone through in both conversations that she and I had. She loves what she does. And you can
mhm,
tell it's not work to her, right? And so she leans into it more. She is incredibly successful as the salesperson that she is because she leans into it.
mhm,
So when you're asking yourself, it's more, what do you need? Like ask yourself, what do you need right now? Maybe it's sleep. If it's sleep, go get some. Like right? And I say that, and if it's exercise, if it's, connecting in the community, if you just need some space to go for a walk and put your headphones on and you just need some silence, like I
mhm,
tell the boys, like I'm going for my walk. Like I'm out of here. Right? And because I know that if I take those 20 minutes, I'm going to come back with a much higher level of
mhm,
energy. And I can give them then the enthusiasm that they want me to have after school and asking how everything is, they're all interconnected. But the great thing is you own it more than you realize.
mhm. Which is a great thing because if you own it more than you realize, you have more power, more control over it, the ultimate control.
Yeah.
Can you share a concrete example of one of the journeys that your clients took from going to burnout and achieving what you want them to achieve related to EEI?
So one of my favorite clients, I met him through a small business workshop. And so he owns his own business. And you had to do kind of a story of like, oh, what do you wish you could be different? And he's like, I wish I could figure out how to balance personal and professional. And I was like, oh, you're a target conversation. So I went up to him and I was like, I'm going to tell the first thing I said to him, I said, right now, you're not ever going to find balance. It's a myth. I said, but what I can teach you is alignment.
Mhm.
And so he signed up. He did my 10-week program, and he went from an individual that was literally going from this to that. And he's an incredible storyteller. He does videography and photography, and it's stunning how he captures people. But that wasn't in the position that he felt like. He felt like he had to say yes to every job that came in instead of the ones that aligned with his value and his worth.
Yeah.
So we would meet for the 10 weeks, and we built this great rapport. I use a lot of humor, as you can probably tell, and kind of storytelling in those analogies. And I basically were working on a sales pitch with energy, and he's like, and I said, how about you just stop underselling? Like, I was just that direct. And he goes, well, if that's as good as it's going to get, I'm going to 7-Eleven. And so it became this joke of like, he could go to 7-Eleven and get, advice. And I was like, yeah, but, can you get this? And I'd give him a story. Like one of the things we worked on was the unresolved narrative. So what was he subconsciously telling himself about his value and his worth for the product that he brought forward? So we worked, all these different, the pause scenario that I talk about. We did, energy assessments, and we looked at a full life. And what I saw in him was he began to increase in his confidence to 3 weeks ago, he finished the formal program. And I said, I'd love to hear, how, if we look at where you started, where you are now, how are you? And I said, because I know what I can see visually. He was much less stressed. You could tell he was physically looking better than when we had started. And he said, I know I didn't do every homework that you gave me. I was like, no, you didn't. And he's like, but what you gave me is you made me think. He said, and what I realized is I could start to build my confidence. And he said, you gave me the ability to believe and trust in myself. To then fast forward, and he's like, could we still keep working together? He's like, what does an extended package look like? He's like, because I want to know that I can come to you and bounce these ideas off of and how I keep my energy up. He's like, because when I come talk to you, it naturally lifts my energy, and then I carry it forward to the next conversation. And I loved it. He was so proud of the fact, one quick story, we met for lunch for a session because that was all he had available. And he came, he's like, I have to tell you, I told someone no today. And I was like, that's brilliant. Because he said yes to everything.
Right.
So the fact that he was like, I said no to someone, he's like, and I connected them with a different photographer that would have helped the other photographer out, and it gave them a solution. But I told him no. And in the past, I would have still said yes. So he managed his energy, and that allows him then to put that enthusiasm and intensity and time management, because that was a whole component for him too, of like, gotta block this, right?
Right.
But because he never said no and didn't evaluate, everything then consumed his time, and he was running on empty.
Oh, good for him.
So better than 7-Eleven. It's what I tell him.
Yes, much better than 7-Eleven. Definitely. Oh my goodness. Well, staying on the pathway of time management, do you have any best practices in your own personal or professional life for either staying focused throughout the day or making sure you have time to do the most important priority tasks? Any best practices related to your own time management?
So one of the things I've done for several years, and in fact, I just talked to a client about it today, schedule time for yourself. It is so easy to talk yourself out of time for yourself, right? So I always, 3 days a week, I go to the gym at noon. It's been on my calendar for years. Even when I was in a corporate role, I took my lunchtime, but I blocked it. I went to the gym, right? So those critical points, so I go for a walk from this time frame. So I protect it. So what I would encourage you to do is when you feel like you're constantly on the go and you're like, hey, yeah, I know I need to exercise. I know I need to go for a walk, right? Schedule it. You schedule everything else in your life. Why wouldn't you schedule time for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do. Like I block that time out and I don't move it unless like when I was in my corporate career, unless it was a senior leader, right? That was their time and that was their meeting. Otherwise, I don't move it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
you got to protect yourself.
definitely. Because like you mentioned earlier, if you don't take care of yourself, how can you show up that much better for others,
Yeah.
especially your family? And speaking of family, I have a
Mhm.
question and I hope you'll be willing to share. And that is, you are a busy mom. You have a successful career. And I have worked with a lot of women who will feel guilty about the amount of time they think they don't spend with their loved ones.
Mhm.
Have you ever felt that? And if so, how did you deal with that? Or the opposite, if you've never felt it, how did you make sure that you didn't have that type of guilt?
So the answer is yes on both sides. Of when I first became a single parent, I was traveling almost 75% of the time, and I was in a role where that couldn't really change, and I felt horrific guilt. I was dealing with anxiety at the time because that guilt was making me feel so anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And what I figured out was if I created that time for myself, then I actually was showing up better for the boys. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually started in 2018. I take a week and I go travel on my own. I travel usually internationally because I think the freedom like I love the adventure of it. I don't have to worry about when I feed somebody. I don't have to worry about if nobody wants to walk that far, right? And what the boys and I figured out very, very early is they love the week away from me too. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to eat their vegetables. They got a little extra video game time. Like we each got to be ourselves in that week.
Mm-hmm.
I came back more energized. They were probably a little more relaxed because they got to have, in their words, probably more fun since I wasn't there. But at the heart, what I talk especially to women about is, okay, you're making supper, Helene. Talk me through the order of the plates as if you're making the plates for everybody. Whose plates do you make first?
If I'm on my best behavior, it's everybody else's
Exactly.
instead of mine.
Right. And so when I tell people like we're really good at being conditioned, like my boys, like and I still make theirs, first. Like, oh, you didn't get as much. Why don't you have as much? Well, because I made sure you guys had enough. Like I didn't, play in the right amount. I'll just take what's left. And we do that, especially as women. I'll just take what's left.
Mm,
Instead, I'm not going to eat as much as three boys. I don't need as much as them. So I'm going to put the amount that I would like to have, and then I'm going to distribute because I guarantee you there is enough for them, right? You have to feed yourself first. And the funny thing about guilt, it is a lower level energy emotion. Guilt and shame only take.
mhm,
It never gives, right? If you think about happiness and joy, it gives. Guilt and shame only take. It is a very selfish centered emotion that just eats.
mm,
And so it lessens you.
right.
So you gotta,
Ooh, yeah. Powerful. Thank
yeah,
you so much. And it's so visual when you imagine the dinner plates and the serving.
yeah.
That so thank you very much for your storytelling. And you're obviously a very good keynote speaker because keynote speakers are always able to tell the stories that make a point, and after that you're thinking, Wow, that's genius. So much better than 7-Eleven, huh?
Exactly. See, I didn't get that at 7-Eleven. So
Yeah.
I tell you.
Well, Beverly, I am sure that there are people watching this or listening to this who will want to get in touch with you. So, what is the best way to do that?
So the best way is connect with me on LinkedIn, Beverly Flores. I message everybody back direct. We don't do any automation or anything like that. Or you can go to my website at timeoutconsulting.com. That's Thyme. So LinkedIn, Beverly Flores, or timeoutconsulting.com.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.